Director of the Center for Nonprofit Studies at Austin Community College, and I want to welcome you to Civil Society, where we explore issues affecting our communal well-being through a nonprofit lens. We're a proud partner of ACCTV, but given the COVID-19 situation, we're going virtual for our 4th season. Our center is fully committed to being an anti-racist organization, to accelerating our personal learning journeys, confronting our biases and blind spots, and creating opportunities for others to do the same. This episode is one part of an 8-part series on the Black experience in Austin. It's part of a larger commitment to similar series on the Latinx, Asian, and Native American experiences in Austin. As we said in our public statement on racial equity back in June, we're moved by a new sense of urgency to heighten our community's consciousness of institutional racism and systemic impediments to racial equity, and to aggressively progress on the continuum to racial equity to fulfill America's promise to all of its inhabitants. You can access recordings of earlier sessions and register for future programs at nonprofitaustin-org/civil society. My guest today is Tam Hawkins, President and CEO of the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce. A native of Dallas, Tam previously served as the Chamber's Vice President of Corporate Engagement and Membership. Before that, Tam's background included corporate sales and marketing roles for some of the nation's most admired corporate companies. Tam is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, active in commercial real estate development. Her activity in commercial real estate development leaves her well-versed in the needs of small to medium-sized businesses and business owners. Her passion for civic engagement has her on the boards of the East Austin Conservancy, a member of the prestigious Austin Area Research Organization, and on the boards of Leadership Austin, the Texas Lyceum, the City of Austin Economic Prosperity Commission, and more. The Chamber's mission is to inspire, develop, and promote Black economic success in the greater Austin area. On a personal note, I was honored to work with Tam and her board in developing this mission and their strategic plan to guide the Chamber in achieving this mission. Tam, thank you as always for joining me on this, which is your 2nd appearance. You move into an elite group of people on civil society. The last time was in 2017, in which you were on a panel about diversity and equity in Central Texas. I just want to say publicly that it's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to more of that. So before we get into the work of the Chamber, Tam, let's explore Tam Hawkins. Why are you doing this? What led you to become the head of the Black Chamber?
Oh, Barry, first off, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me here and allowing this topic. And I was just beaming from ear to ear as you began your intro, and I'm thinking in my head, Barry for president. And so thank you. But the way I came about this work was really, truly organically. I'm a 3rd generation entrepreneur. I think I might have told you that before, which is oftentimes a rarity in the Black community. I wish I could say that it's a legacy business that I'm involved in. That is even more rare in the United States. But my family has always been involved in business. We've always been servant leaders. And so oftentimes people would come to my grandfather and ask him for help with business. He was an insurance salesman and ended up having his own agency. And then my mother did in suit the same. So we were always doing that. And a few years ago, when I moved to Austin, I was at home with 2 little kids and my husband was officing out of our house. And I was going crazy, quite frankly. And my husband knew this because I did well as a stay-at-home mother with the first one. The second one, I was having a harder time finding my niche and my groove. And so my husband found a job for me. And at the time it was for membership manager, and I was a bit overqualified, but I was already helping people. We were reading leases for people, helping them just kind of find space and write down their business plan. So I came on board there, and I ended up doing corporate engagement because I had a strong corporate background. And so I increased our corporate engagement, took some time off after my husband ended up passing away. And then the board asked me if I wanted to come back as a CEO, and I was happy to do so. And still am happy to be here and be able to do this work, which is really hard work. You've helped me realize some of our goals and some of the pitfalls as well.
What challenges you the most, day in, day out, as the head of the chamber?
What are our biggest challenges?
Yeah, what are the challenges, and what gives you your greatest satisfaction?
So our biggest challenges are same as most minority business in the United States, even for our chamber, would be access to capital. It is developing and building that brand value. Oftentimes we do a fair amount of work around equity issues and helping people navigate that. But I think that modeling that there's value and paying for that service and seeing it as part of an overall plan for corporate and medium-sized business. I think right now, during this period of racial unrest that we're experiencing, a lot of people are leaning on to their friends that are minorities and asking them for help, not realizing that there is an actual industry that they could financially support to help them navigate some of their pitfalls. The other biggest challenge for our members specifically surround access to capital. We are facing a time of that's, I believe, we've only experienced as a nation one other time that I'm aware of with the Spanish flu pandemic. And as a result, we're going to see a fair amount of Black businesses in Central Texas and the United States not survive this. And it's not just the pandemic, it is all of the systems that have played a part in creating this atmosphere where they're not going to survive as well as their white counterparts.
Yeah. Well, clearly people of color are being much harder hit, as all the statistics are showing, than white folks are. And I think that has to be highlighted. But I want to go back to what you said about and I'll just project, the chamber is about investing in Black businesses.
Yes.
It's not about charity. And
yes.
I think that's really important to highlight, because a lot of people are responding to the current environment by looking for charitable ventures. So how could I or one of the viewers who is interested in supporting investment?
So the biggest and the easiest one, it's a little more difficult because, again, we're in a pandemic, so I know that's a bit more precarious, but the best way to invest in any business is to support them financially. If they have a product that you desire, go buy it. I think what happens is we fall into just habits, especially as businesses, I'm talking B2B sales, we fall into habits of, well, we've always used that vendor and we've got a great working relationship, which I don't wish to disrupt that. But I want for people to understand that there's variety in spending. Even at our own chamber, we cycle where we spend to make certain that we are spreading our dollar as evenly as we can, and to make certain that we're highlighting other businesses so others know about them as well. I think that's one way. I think that, people being charitable is not in and of itself a bad thing. I just think that there are other opportunities to purchase some of their services.
So if I was interested, where would I find a list of Black businesses?
So
businesses, I should say.
We have a healthy list, and we've seen our list circulate over the years, oftentimes divorced from us. So we're trying to come up with creative ways to show that we've done, because it takes a fair amount of work to create these lists, because you're digging and peering over. And so austinbcc.org is our website, and there's a healthy directory. We've also realized that that we need to spread that directory and widen it. So we have and made certain that we've curated industry lists. Right now, a lot of people are in mental health crisis because of the pandemic and the isolation that they feel and the uncertainty, anxiety. So we created a healthy list. A lot of people don't know we have at least 60 to 90 or more practitioners that are African-American descent in Austin, in the Central Texas region. And you literally could find, I made a joke once that you could find a practitioner that is more Mother Earth and, you know, no shoes, incense burning, to one that's more corporate. Like, and I believe that in most business industry aspects for the Black community, that you really have a variety. Just take your pick.
And so we'd find that up on the chamber website?
Yes, at austinbcc.org.
So what else does, I mean, give you a chance to talk about what the chamber does. So what does the chamber do? I know you're totally unprepared for this question. So what does the chamber do to promote Black economic success? And you've already indicated some of what they're doing to what you're doing to deal with the current crisis. But
So,
first, maybe more specific currently.
Yes, so initially, like a lot of organizations, we had to pivot as well. So we went into building a guidebook to kind of help people go through recovery. So we listed a lot of resources for people, ways to think about their business. We also do webinar series on how to pivot their business. What ways are they looking to become more lean? We always advocated for these things, but now it's even more vital than ever. And making certain that they can cut costs where they can. And what we did find, Barry, I'm so excited to tell you, and I'm in awe of it and inspired my own self, is how resilient these entrepreneurs were and how creative and innovative they were. And their synergy and talking with each other in those webinars and building was just so incredible. And I'm amazed by that. And also, we have not relinquished our advocacy. Just recently, we were helpful. The Austin Chamber, the Greater Austin Chamber, was leading the effort on recruiting Tesla. And I'm excited to say that they are actually moving here. And that's so vital. And for us, the reason why we could support that effort and help was because of where they actually were building and the community in which that they chose to build and how they will hopefully be impacted in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Now that raised another question. So I believe there's a multi-ethnic coalition of chambers.
Yes, yes.
Can you just talk for a moment about that? And
sure.
Our
acronym is called MECA, and it's the Multi-Ethnic Chamber Alliance is what it stands for. And it is the Black Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, the LGBT Chamber, Q Chamber, I'm sorry, and then the Asian chambers combined. And we often work well with the Greater Austin Chamber. Austin is really, I believe, lucky because we are the only consortium of its kind that works as the way that we do. Other cities do this as well, but I think we really do a team effort. So it's a lot of working hands together, moving a project. So someone may be the lead, but rest assured that other organizations were brought in and they weighed in on it too.
So you talked a little bit about from the shoeless, long-haired, incense-burning entrepreneur to the one who's sitting in a stuffy suit. Not that I'm showing my preferences. Can you paint a broad picture of what does the picture of Black businesses look like in Austin?
Oh, so Austin, according to our last report on the economic census, actually does really well for Black business in the retail sectors, trade sectors. We out-earn other Texas cities 3-1. We are looking for the new report. It is very, you know this, Barry, it's a slow process for the results of the economic census to be rolled out. So I'm hoping that those numbers still are sticking. I do suspect that we will see shrinkage in revenue growth for Black women-owned businesses, although they're one of the fastest growing segments. I think the revenue sales, we're going to see that shrink. That should alarm all of us, and not just the Black Chamber. And what that means is that we are having Black women-owned businesses that are entering the marketplace at a record pace, but they're not seeing revenue dollars that match that in growth. And oftentimes they're heads of household, they are employing people, so that is troubling if we can't reduce some of that gap. I also think that we will see some more innovation due to the pandemic. I think, the bad thing is that we're in a pandemic. The good thing is we have a lot of opportunity for new growth and new businesses. And so I think we'll see some innovation out of that as well.
So I'm not sure if this question covers what you just said, but I think gives you a chance to expand on it. So in the current environment of increased racial awareness, with a lot of people rethinking their own attitudes and many of us feeling a greater responsibility to do something concrete, what do you see as the impact on Black businesses? And you mentioned some stuff before, but what do you see as the impact?
So I think I'm happy about it. I think the impact is going to be a positive one. Part of it is that consumers are really savvy now. So for instance, we've learned that, perhaps we shouldn't buy blood diamonds, or perhaps we shouldn't buy, a shirt that's made in a sweatshop in some country that's not necessarily within our region. So we've gotten the buying power and the social responsibility of our buying power. And I think as the racial awareness has been highlighted more and people are more involved in wanting to help eradicate systemic racism, I think they're getting the idea finally that, oh, well, when I buy my kid's birthday cake, and we've got this family baker that we've been using for years, but is there another baker that I might be able to try? Or my corporation orders paper products and supplies, but we have a couple of different vendors. Can we put them, as I've been saying, create your vendor list. You can do this as a company, you can do this as a family, and create your vendor list and just cycle through it. It's a lot easier to be more intentional about your spending power when you have a list that you can readily go to and just choose.
I think that's critical. I think it's critical, people, as you're saying, that intentionality is really important.
Yes.
Because if we want to support a community and the institutions, economic as well as charitable institutions in the community, the way to do it is to support it.
I agree.
So what do you see happening as part of, in general, as part of the renewed interest and focus on racial inequity, lack of social justice, and the awareness of the tremendous divide that exists not only in the United States, but Austin is often referred to as a community with a great divide between the rich, the poor, and so forth. What do you see happening as a result? Go ahead.
I'm hopeful, and it wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't say that I was also reserved and a little nervous, because if you look at our nation's history, and this is not although it's a new in terms of age, like it's actually 2020 in the year, we've had these periods historically. And the one that always pops out in my mind right now, and I've been really going over it and studying it lately, is the period of the United States after Reconstruction, and the tremendous strides that African Americans made after Reconstruction in terms of the legislature and the bills that were passed. And a lot of people don't realize that we've gotten our Southern public school educational system was passed by bills that were supported by Black congressmen. And so what I'm hoping happens is that we'll have some sustainable legal protocol and action and laws, quite frankly, that can help dismantle this. Oftentimes people say that you can't legislate or undo racism with policy. And the fact of the matter is that policy very much was intentional about baking racism into some of our systems. So you absolutely have to utilize policy as just one tool to dismantle it. And it has to be intentional. It can't be, well, hopefully this will happen. It has to be intentional. So I hope to see some of the work of great civil rights leaders from generations ago implemented today is what my hope is.
Thank you. And so just a little bit of a switch in questions, but I would love to know what you would say to your younger self about your future. What do you wish you would have known as you started on your professional journey?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I wish my younger self would have allowed me a lot more grace than I gave myself as I was going and growing through my corporate and my career experience. I wish I had known that there were so many people willing to help me on my journey. And I think I did know that, but I don't know if I focused my energy and my attention to that as much as I should have. I think I let the one person who was negative, I think I spent way too much time dealing with that. And I still struggle with that sometimes, even today. And so just remembering that there are so many people that are willing to help, and that you know, this idea of the self-made man or woman, I really believe is kind of a myth. And I think it serves some people well to create that narrative. But the idea to me is that we all need each other. We're all responsible for each other, and we've all helped lift each other up, I mean, repeatedly and time again. So.
And so I know out of that, I know you are a mentor to lots of people, and I'm sure you've had mentors who've helped you. How encourage someone to be a mentor to your son or daughter, or what would you like to see in a mentor for them?
I've had incredible mentors over a period of time. Starting with my mother. My mother was an amazing businesswoman, and almost everything that I learned from her. And I've had male mentors. One of the things that I think I want people to know, oftentimes there's a lot of conversation right now about, well, you know, women have to have women mentors, and Black people need Black, and that, I mean, that's great. And there's no doubt room for that and need for that. But some of my best mentors did not look like me or share my gender. And I think there's room for that as well. And I think we need that. So what I'd like for a mentor in my children is that, for one, that they're kind, and that they are vested in seeing the success of my children as human beings first, right? Because I believe that business is very personal, and it should be. And if you act and you don't divorce the humanity from business, is what I want their mentors to make certain that they help them navigate.
I was spending time sleeping in cyberspace. Suspended animation, the wonders of technology. So do you think your kids will be entrepreneurial like you and your family prior to you?
Absolutely.
What makes you believe that?
Well, here's what my now 13-year-old, when he was 7, could tell you a go-to-market strategy. I mean, he could. The other day, I made something. I can't remember what I made. And my daughter she was like, this is really good. And I was like, okay, I'm glad you liked it. And she kept asking questions. So finally I was like, why? She was like, you know, we should go down to our park and we should sell this. And so they're always thinking about ways to generate income and revenue and I just think that's what happens. They're in meetings with me. My 13-year-old, when our current city manager came to town, we had a welcome reception. And I know everyone thinks that I planted this kid in the audience. He just happened to be with me because I'm a single mother. And he raises his hand and he asks the question of, like, you know, will you keep your promises to the city and this group that you're speaking to? And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I didn't, you know, because everyone knows he's my kid. So I just think that they are trained and they're around this. And that's
fantastic.
Yeah. They will. I think my daughter will be an artist and she will have galleries is what I think will happen. My son will do something with tech and art. I just don't know what that is for him, but I'm totally convinced he'll do something like that.
That's fantastic. What a legacy. So kind of coming towards the end of this interview before we let others come in and ask questions. So in your time of working in the chamber and the other activities you do, what are the key lessons that you've learned that you want to pass on to, well, obviously you already passed them on to your kids, but that you want to pass on to others? Because obviously you're a role model for many. And so what is it that you'd like people to really grasp and understand?
I think I just was talking to Kate about it. I really believe that we have to, it is okay to recognize that there's humanity in business and approach it that way. I want to see, as I'm quoting, a kindness to business. And it doesn't mean that you can't be shrewd or competitive. And I think where I'm getting this from is that I came from a very competitive family, and competition isn't a bad thing, but it didn't just drive us to the point where we wanted to annihilate someone else or we were mean-spirited with it. Competition was good. We still are competitive. We'll play a game and we want to win, but there's honor in the competition. And that's a family value of ours. So I'd like to see more of that in business.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go and find out what the folks listening are interested in hearing about?
Well, the final thing I'd like to share is that we live in a fantastic town. It's a town like others. Fantastic means that it also can have troubles and issues, but I think we have a group of citizens, just in general, citizens that really want to do the right thing, that want to change things. So I hope that we continue that path and that we continue to work together.
Super. Thank you very much. Can you just briefly talk about the history of the chamber? When was it formed? What were the motivating factors for its formation? And
sure. So we were founded in 1982 by a collective of Black men and Black women business owners who decided that they really wanted a seat at the table. In our inception, we were really based in tourism for Austin. And so you saw this boom in terms of demographics, and Black people really still lived in the center of Austin at that time. And a lot of those founders were entrepreneurs themselves, and they just wanted to make certain that they had a voice collectively and that they could go work with their elected officials to make certain that causes for Black business and causes for the culture of Blacks in Austin was also being listened to. Our chamber, and some of the others as well, but we have a lot of the civil rights movement was also part of an economic movement as well. So we still have a lot of that that is in our social justice framework. So that's also kind of a little bit more nuanced and unique to our chamber because a lot of our history is rooted in that. So when a Black Lives Matter comes around, we are a part of an ecosystem and a voice that is present as well.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions yet, so you're stuck with my questions.
I think they think you're so talented and so good.
I don't think so. I think they're afraid.
There's one I see in the chat.
I think they're afraid of you.
There's one in the chat. I see it.
There is one in the chat. So how has business environment for Black businesses in Austin, is it evolved in recent years? I'm thinking about pre-COVID, since the impact of COVID is still evolving.
So Black businesses evolved over in Austin in several different ways. One, from a geographic perspective, as the rising costs of Austin have continued, you've seen a little bit of flight in terms of geographic location. So you're seeing them located in and still part of Travis County and Pflugerville, but you're definitely seeing a lot more in Williamson County. That's one way that it's evolved. Another way is I talked about how in our inception, we were really heavily focused on tourism, and the businesses were a result of that. You've seen as we are Silicon Hills, you've seen a tech spike for Black business here in Austin as well. Pre-COVID, again, we were seeing some good trajectory. I do suspect, again, that we will see a fair amount of businesses not be able to survive the pandemic. And we will also see, as I said earlier, you'll see some ones that are innovative because of the needs and opportunity that has arisen out of the pandemic as well.
I think I know your answer, but I'd like to hear you talk about the current racial and social justice movement and consciousness that's developing in our country, the removal of Confederate monuments, things along those lines, people speaking out about the divisions and inequities in our society. Do you think this is different do you think it's going to sustain itself? Is it different than what's happened in the past? Or do you think this is a new page, a new awakening?
I think that, I think I'm hopeful, you know, and I mentioned, I think you had dropped off the call. I've been thinking a lot about Reconstruction in that period, and looking to see what failed, quite frankly. And when we had a huge amount of success during that period, and I think a lot of Americans, Black Americans, were hopeful then. And then we see this recoil with all of these laws, starting with Jim Crow and just continuing on and on. And I still think we have a fair amount of that right now in present day. And I think we have to be vigilant about making certain that we have policies that match these hopeful goals right now in this period of awakening. And we have to have accountability for what we wish to see. So I believe marching and a voice to those that are oftentimes voiceless is amazing and powerful, but I think we have to have policy that matches that, and we have to have continued change of heart status to match that policy change as well. So short, I know that was a long answer.
No, not at all.
But I just think that it is a little different in terms of, I think the youth have been really involved, and we're seeing what in my conversations, I've heard my white counterparts say that the responsibility isn't mine alone. And I don't remember hearing that before and historically. And then even when I think of abolitionists and you look at that period of time, and you look at quotes from Frederick Douglass, and that it was totally possible for someone to believe in the abolishment of slavery, but also hate the enslaved person. So I think we're seeing a little bit of difference, or at least I'm hopeful that we're seeing that differently now.
There's a question in the chat. Starts off with an apology if you've already addressed this question, which I'll extend for myself since I was absent for a little while. What would you say are the biggest challenges for minority chambers?
And I'm going to approach that question, or how I understand that question, is for the chambers themselves. And then I'll okay, good. And so I would go back to, it's the one of generating the revenue and the value that we bring. And I'll give you a very specific point. I had and I'm not going to name the business. I had a corporate business that wanted to buy a membership. So of course, you know, that's what we do, and that's how we generate income. Well, for $1,000, they sent me a list of about 19 deliverables for that $1,000. In essence, I would have to pay them for them to join my chamber. There are hard costs that are associated with completing those deliverables. And I wish I could say that this is a one-off. This happens to us quite often, by the way. And so this time I think I just had enough. And I said, you know, unfortunately, the contract that you're purporting to have us sign, it creates more disparities. You know, I don't have, you know, 50 staff members. I don't have a big staff. I have a very lean staff that does a lot of work. So, and I called them out on it, quite frankly. I was like, look, it's just going to create more disparities in funding for chambers. And basically, I don't wish to enter this. We support your mission because we do. We'll help you, but we won't sign this agreement as stated. Well, then they were like, oh, well, let's talk. There's really nothing to talk about at that point. We're so far off the mark because what they wanted for us to implement would have easily been about $15,000. And if you thought that this was okay in the first place, we're so far off the mark, there's nothing really to discuss. So that's one of the challenges, and seeing and having support from others to say, no, pay them fairly for the work that they do. You wouldn't ask anybody else to come in and help you develop a diversity plan and not pay them. As a matter of fact, you would go in and pay a consultant a lot of money to do that.
So the essence of what you just said that I'm hearing is that there are some, and I don't know how widespread, you said it was several instances, is one in which there are expectations of a minority chamber, perhaps because it is a minority chamber, loosely speaking, to go the extra mile and almost have that charitable perspective, as opposed to approaching you all as, you know, as a business exchange of goods, exchange of services approach. Would that be an accurate?
Oh, absolutely. It's more of a charity. Like, we're giving you money. We know you need the money. And so here, take this money. And by the way, can you do all of these things? And so, and I don't think the intention is malicious. I just think that the learning curve is great, right? So.
So talk a bit about the COVID-19 resources you have on your website.
So it's one of, we kind of already knew that our businesses wouldn't get a lot of the federal programs. So what we did was, with current members, we sent them out a separate list and said, here are the banks that are more likely to process your applications, first off. Then second of all, it is other resources, other funding sources, grants that are being available, in particular, just not just COVID-19, but when the George Floyd protests kicked off, a lot of companies were making statements and some were pledging. So we're highlighting who's pledging. I believe our national chamber, the U.S. Black Chamber, is actually tallying up the amount of money and going in with a bigger ask and making certain that the pledges are honored. And so you'll see us follow suit and kind of give that as a resource for our regional area as well. So
that's great.
And I'd like to follow that. I noticed that the resources that you have there are all encompassing, so it helps your members and their businesses and their families and their, you know, healthcare issues. And I think that wraparound is nice to see, and also something that people should be aware that you guys have that full list of wraparound resources listed there.
Thank you, Kate. And yes, that you're right. And I go back, it's part of what I was saying earlier about the totality and the humanity of it. It's not, you know, your worker, when they show up in your office, they didn't just show up just to produce that service for you. I mean, they showed up as an entire person, and acknowledging that as well and in business and as a chamber.
Let me ask an extraordinarily, probably what sounds like a naive question, but I think it really gets to the heart of things. Why did you already perceive or know Black businesses would not get the same benefit from government actions, good or bad, that white businesses would get?
It's not a naive question. It's a really good question. One is, we knew that they didn't have relationships with bankers like that. Two, is that we knew the banks don't see them the same, quite frankly. And that's evident and when they're initially funded in the first place, given things that are similar, being credit history, being expertise, they're still underfunded at least 30% off the jump. And that is systemic racism at play. There's nothing else to what, I mean, if they're all the same, they should be funded the same, right? And so, so we knew that already. We also knew that there has not been any program that has successfully lifted Black people out of poverty. If there was, we wouldn't be having these conversations. So, so we knew that we had to approach it differently, and we knew we had to dig into our relationships and you know, let people know. That the amazing thing, though, is that our membership has actually increased during this time. And I think it's become vital to know, not just our chamber, with all the chamber, your relationships with your chamber is it might mean a world of difference to you in a period like this.
I'm curious if you could speak more about conversations leading up to Tesla's announcement and the Black chamber and the multi-ethnic chamber were like, and what assurances were provided that makes you optimistic. How has their approach been ideal, and what could they improve?
Well, I can tell you one off the bat, and I hope I'm not betraying any confidentiality. I did sign an NDA.
Everybody close your ears.
I'm for one, I'm not one, so Mindy, you have to know that I believe big, small business should work together. I'm not one of those anti-big business, anti-small. I think that conversation for me is just ludicrous. We need big business, we need small business, and all cities need businesses in their city to stay vital and healthy, for one. But what you do is you teach corporations how to come into your city. You teach them how to be a corporate citizen. So what makes me optimistic is, for one, where they built in the first place. They didn't go build in the shiny, high, you know, cute area. They are building in an area that's economically disadvantaged. The options for jobs are middle skills jobs, and they have jobs and programs that are for people right out of high school. They are working with the Del Valley ISD and the ISDs around the area to make certain that we have kids that exit high school that are ready to get these really good paying jobs, and they're able to go to work immediately. What also makes me optimistic is because, you know, oftentimes we are in these recruiting calls, Mindy, and, you know, as an ethnic chamber, they always want to sell us like, oh, we have good jobs. Well, we're actually in the business of building entrepreneurs. So what I want to know is, do you have ability for contract options for these minority businesses that they can give to their kids, and they can build intergenerational wealth? So I did not let them slide on that. I asked them about that point blank, and they ended up rolling out their leadership team to me and to my colleagues. And we hammered them over that. So that's why I'm optimistic. And then finally, we've done this before with other companies that I won't mention by name, but I have a call with them today to talk about the program set for those minority contractors. So that's what makes me more hopeful. And I'm saying it publicly because I also need your help in keeping them accountable. So you said you do these things. So 5 years from now, did they do those things? What's happened? And I'm also hopeful, finally, that some of the amenities that area has needed for a really long time, I know they're going to get it, because that big corporation's right down the street, and their employees are going to need a place to go to the grocery store. They're going to need infrastructure. They're going to need sidewalks. They're going to need parks that are well maintained, and they're going to command that kind of respect to get that done. So that's why I'm excited for Tesla to come to the area.
Fantastic. When you mentioned before about the National Group on Black Chambers, trying to hold people's feet to the fire, so to speak, who are making all these commitments. What is the experience right now? Are after the grand announcements, are these corporations and foundations or whatever, Are they really following through?
So what we've seen is some people, some social justice organizations getting some really big checks. I go back to, I don't know if we as chambers have done a great job into letting them also know that chambers actually, you know, move the needle on supporting small business. So letting them know that some of that cash flow should be directed that way so we can help support that ecosystem of business and economics, right? And so I'm hopeful that the might of the larger chamber can kind of lean in and get them to connect those dots. You know, I see all of small business, let me be clear, as super patriotic in the engine that runs the United States. And so an ethnic business is just a component of that. And so I'd like to see those corporations really understand that dynamic and kind of, quite frankly, put their money where their mouth is.
With that, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. You have a fascinating job, and as I think you know from our conversations, I think you're a fascinating person. So, so thank you for being with us. For our viewers, thank you for watching and participating in civil society. And thank you especially to Kate Tolliver, our managing producer and my lookalike stand-in, for your support in making today possible. You can read more about TAM, about the Greater Austin Black Chamber of Commerce, get the links to some of the things we talked about and the issue we just discussed, and view previous and future episodes at nonprofitaustin.org/civil society. Hope you all have a great day, and thank you all, and thank you, Tam.
Thank you guys. Take care.